Hello and welcome to the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast. Now, we don't have Chris this week. He's off saving people from COVID and stuff. And I thought I'd try and line up someone to talk to. Now, you know we like to take the piss out of Wiccans and psychics, but we haven't picked on any New Agers. Now, I did turn over a couple of rocks to try and find New Agers. Couldn't find any. I just found little bugs scurrying away. Not too dissimilar from New Agers when you have a conversation with them, actually. So the best I can come up with is actually my friend Lee, who isn't technically a New Ager, but he's the closest thing because he has an interest in gurus and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is try and probe his mind and see his point of view from certain things. Maybe some things we'll agree on, maybe some things we won't. So, Lee, are you ready to be probed?
Yeah, probe me, baby. Let's do it. Let's get.
And did I manage to dominate the podcast?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
You're recording as well, aren't you? So you're going to try and make your own podcast out of this. Is that right?
Yeah. So what we were going to do, weren't we? Was obviously I was going to have you on my podcast, talk a little bit about witchcraft. You were going to have me on your podcast, talk a little bit about, I don't know, whatever you guys kind of talk about, your witchcrafty stuff. It sounds like a lot, like you say, it sounds like a lot of bitching's involved. It sounds like you don't talk about anything useful. It's just pure bitching by the sounds of it.
So have you listened to our No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast or not?
I've listened to a little bit of it, yeah.
Did you learn anything?
I learned nothing.
Okay.
I actually went backwards. I actually came away actually knowing less than when I went in. Yeah.
The unworthy, the mundane. It's all coded, you see. That's the thing with witchcraft. It's all a secret, isn't it? So we can't be having too many mundanes know our secrets. Subtext, I believe they call it. So what do you want to talk about? Are we going to talk about some of these gurus? Because you're a prolific reader of books, aren't you? I think it would take me a year to read through all the books that you probably get through. Every time I see you, you're always reading something from someone. So what was the last thing you actually read?
I'm currently reading a book by Dr. Joe Dispenza about how to lose your mind and create a new one.
Okay.
It's actually got quite, it's got some sort of relation between, I feel. In fact, I'm not going to say what I was going to say because if I do, it already put it in a box, which I don't want to put it in. But it talks a lot about, it talks a lot about so it talks about a lot about manifestation and like the idea of, the whole idea of if you have to feel it. If you're going to think about something and you want to manifest something, and you also have to feel it. And it also talks about how you have to change your essentially your learned emotion. So if you have an emotion that you've learned from when you're 8 years old or 15-year-olds or whatever it may be, if you've learned that emotion and that emotion is in your body, then the idea is to be aware of that emotion, change it so that it's no longer held, it's not being held anymore, and change what you do. So if let's say you're trying to manifest money, however, you're not every single day you're doing the same day in, day out, then the idea is you need to change. You need to think positively in terms of money. You need to know what you want. You need to visualize it, and then you need to do some change. You need to change what you do in your everyday life. Perhaps put yourself in circumstances and situations where there might be opportunities. And that's what I'm getting from it so far, is the three things to change are your environment, your body. So you want to change your body, you want to change that emotional memory, the environment, and then I think the last one was time, space and time. So you want to also and I forget what that was, to be honest with you.
Well, you've moved on a little bit from Osho and Sadhguru then. Because I think those were your favorites at one point, weren't they?
Osho's cool. I like Osho. Yeah, I'll join. Sign me up to that cult.
Which is the one that had the cult where people got killed? Is that Osho?
Osho, I think. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to be signed up for that. I think you're a little bit too late there. I don't think it's still going, is it?
Nah, he's gone, mate. Yeah, there's a Netflix documentary, isn't there? Wild Wild West.
Yeah, that's it. I watched bits of it, but I haven't watched the full lot. But that's the thing with a lot of gurus and stuff like that. What do you think that you get from those sorts of things? Because that's the thing. I mean, a lot of these people that we've just mentioned, they've got books out, and they also have like YouTube interviews and stuff like that that you can go and look up and research. Why do you think they put out the information that they put out? Do you think these people really want to help others? Because it all ends up rather bad in the end often, doesn't it, when it comes to these cults and stuff? Do you think they're rotten from day one, or do you think that it kind of just goes rotten?
No, I think that obviously when it comes to humans, you're dealing with essentially you're dealing with like a body of emotion, a body of past experience, a body of ego, a body of, you know, whatever it may be. There's all these different there's all these different qualities to a human. And so yeah, obviously some people are going to write a book and they're going to try and get it out, and they're going to do it from a point of, I want to make as much money as I can, or they're going to write a book and they're going to get it out in terms of like, I want to give people value. The reason why I read these books myself is because what I've realized is I quite enjoy trying to improve my perception of reality, and I like having those little epiphanies and those little realizations about yourself, or where you read something. And I do believe that you can have a conversation with someone and they can ask you a question that you've never thought of before, and then it can really like open up something inside of you, inside your mind. So I enjoy trying to seek those moments where I read something new, a different perspective. Also, when you read a book, you can experience someone's life. If somebody's spent 25 years, 30 years studying something specific, you can then come in and read and know as much, you know, have as much knowledge or almost as much knowledge as what they have on that subject through reading for a week or two. And then or if somebody's, you know, if they've lived a life and you want to read their autobiography, you can then experience their life. You can learn obviously about history. When you learn about history, you also learn what not to do and perhaps what to do, not what to, and what to not repeat. So I like that. That's why I read those books. And in terms of why I read Osho and Sadhguru and Eckhart Tolle and those kind of spiritual teachers, is because I think a lot of all of human suffering comes from the mind, doesn't it? Ultimately, it begins at the mind. If somebody's miserable and unhappy, it's because of their mindset. It's okay. You're going to have factors that will play into that. You'll have your environment, if you've got a shitty environment, but you know these people that are, you know, that grow up in a shitty environment, but they're positive, they're optimistic, and that's their mindset. And so I read these books personally so that I can be a more positive, optimistic and present person. I can listen to people, improve who I am, and grow from a sort of mind, body and spirit. Like when I say body, I mean like I want to be healthy, I want to be strong, I want to be nimble, I want to move well, I want to be better at, you know, the sports that I do. And so yeah, and so that's why I read those books. I enjoy it, and plus also it's a good way to spend my time. I feel it's more productive than watching.
How many of them do you think are really saying the same thing but just repackaging the information? Because you said about kind of your mentality, that kind of things. A lot of these self-help style books tend to be very samey. So what is with that? Is that literally a case of, you think that they've maybe picked on some core principles, you know, natural laws, I don't know, and that each guru or each author is just trying to explain it in a different way? Why are they also kind of saying? Because if you pick up one and another and you didn't really see the cover, I think a lot of the times they all just see the same. And I see a lot of people that are in the self-help section that get almost addicted. They buy one self-help book, don't really do what's in it. then they'll buy another one, don't really do what's in it. I mean, you're a PT, you can talk about weight loss and things like that, where you get one person buying a weight loss book, don't really fix the problem, so they buy another and another and another, and then they buy a shake weight from Tesco or some other strange contraption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been guilty of that as well. I've been guilty, not of the shake weights. I stay clear.
I can imagine it's one of those ab things, and I can imagine one of those. They're really popular. The things that vibrate when you put the batteries in.
Love eggs.
No, not love eggs. The things you wrap around your stomach, and they're supposed to vibrate and give you abs.
Oh yeah, and then so you just walk in on someone eating they got a cheese board on their belly and they're drinking wine when they've wrapped themselves up in this thing that's supposed to shock you and give you abs. Yeah, when ultimately it's just move more and eat less. If you're overweight, you just move more and you eat less, and that's it. And of course you've got thyroid problems, and you know that play comes into play, but you know the majority of the time it is just a case of moving more.
They
yeah, I
can
agree.
market those, can't they? They can market products. They market those sorts of products that come out that you see the adverts on for Price Drop TV or Argos or something. And there's some sort of minor scientific claim, which is kind of like, yeah, this does a little bit towards helping you lose weight, and then they'll blow it fully out of proportion. When actually, I suppose, is really just for people that are lazy, that don't want to do the proper work, so they think I can just buy this thing, put batteries on it, and stick it on me whilst I'm watching television. My personal opinion is that's what a lot of these gurus are like. Find enlightenment by reading my book. I mean, what would you say about that?
I think
it's fair to say?
It's a good comparison, yeah. However, the thing I would argue with that is if you, let's say, so if you've got thousands of these books that are out, and you've got a child that's or a young person that's suffering and they're suicidal, and they pick up a book by some random teacher, quotation marks, and they read what they say and it resonates with them and they can change their life and improve their life, then great, more power to them, and more power to the people that write the books. Like we had this discussion actually last time where you said, when I asked about you writing a book, and you said it's all, you know, anything on witchcraft, it's all been written, it's all in books, there's no point. And we had a discussion, didn't we, briefly about, you know, I say, but what if you write a book and then people pick it up who wouldn't have picked up all these other witchcraft books? Then you've provided value, and you've definitely provided something for someone.
To a certain extent, I think what I probably would have said is that you can only teach I wouldn't even say foundational witchcraft, pre-foundational witchcraft, like pre-med. You know, you can't really teach it from a book. It's not possible. So I don't see the point in doing that. Now, what I can do is I can take someone and help them walk down that path so that they can actually get to an intermediate to advanced level. But I can't do that in the form of a book. It has to be a one-on-one type thing. That's what, and with the information, the problem is if you did say you did write a really good book on something like witchcraft, it's gonna be there in a sea of other shit. So in terms of, yes, there might be one or two people that might pick it up and read it, and they might think, well, actually, this is quite concise. It might be similar to what's already out there, but it's concise. But if you think about the amount of time that it takes to do that, how many people I could train face to face and get them to an actual level. That's what I struggle with when it comes to the books. That's why I've never written a book about witchcraft so far. It's just because I don't see it as an efficient use of my time. But a lot of, in terms of the self-help, I think you've picked up on something quite important, and that's people that are unhappy with their lives or that want something. They're the people that kind of go in the self-help. It's self-help. They want help for something. Mostly witchcraft isn't really so much about self-help for the witch. It's normally a case of you're using your knowledge to help someone else cheat the system to make it easier for them. Whereas most witches, I think they want to go more down the enlightenment kind of step, which is not something that you can get in a book. You can't get enlightenment in a book from reading a book. It's something that you have to go down a path yourself, and everyone is different and unique. And that's what I don't like about the guru books, is that they kind of market themselves as that.
It certainly
makes me uncomfortable sometimes.
it certainly plants the seed, though, doesn't it?
The seed of what?
The seed, I mean the seed for enlightenment. If you're let's say, because I'll be honest with you, mate, before I read Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, this was a few years back, but before I read that, I wasn't aware of the fact that my mind was talking. I wasn't aware of the fact that, oh, hang on a minute, I don't have to listen to this thing in my mind. I can actually experience immense peace and like I mean indescribable, like peace, where it's just like there's nothing going on and colors become brighter, and you know, as if I'm kind of on mushrooms a bit, things become brighter and I become in a meditative state and my senses heighten, and it's like, and it's a beautiful place to be. And like I can tap into it now quite frequently throughout the day, and I can especially do it especially if I'm, something gets me a little bit emotional and all of a sudden I'm feeling the emotion. I'm like, okay, I know what I got to do here. I just got to tap into my senses. What can I feel? What can I hear? What can I see? What can I smell? And that's one way that I go into that meditative state. And before reading that book, I was completely unaware, completely oblivious to the fact that there was this narrative or this narrator in my mind.
So that's a technique that you've learned from the book to get you into the meditative state. But why did you buy the book? Where did you buy it, or was it a present or something like that? Can you remember why you actually bought the book in the first place? Did you buy it trying to find something that would teach you that, or did you? Okay, so why did you get that book in the first place? What was the sort of thought process? What drew you towards it?
No, the book found me, actually.
See, now that just sounds new agey.
It's only the way you said it, though. I wouldn't have ever said that. It was the way you said. It was the way you said what made you buy it. It kind of set me up for that. But what it was
set people up. Oh, they won't believe that.
when I was delivering explosives for a private company in one of my previous jobs, not previous lives, previous jobs. I read a great deal when I was doing that, because as you can imagine, there's two people to each vehicle, to each lorry, and then you wouldn't always be driving. So I'd read when I wasn't driving, and one of the accountant for the job, she recommended it to me. She said, "Oh, I've got a good book for you," and gave me the book, lent me The Power Now, and so that's how I ended up reading it. I kind of like just fell into it, just kind of got given it as a read.
So what was this previous job then? You were some sort of explosive expert, terrorist?
So what I did is, after I left the army, I did a couple of things when I left the army, and then I guess this was a bit of manifestation myself. I had my lorry license, and I thought, well, what job can I do where I get paid the most amount of money? And then I thought, well, it's got to be delivering bombs. It's got to be explosives. So I went on a course that I had to.
As you do.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Exactly. So I went on a course, did the course to learn about it. Got all the qualifications I needed, and then started applying for jobs. And I kind of like, I did that whole whilst I was driving other lorries. I was kind of visualizing myself driving it and being like, I'd be sick to have bombs, like nukes and stuff. You know, and yeah, so that's sort of how I went about it.
You wouldn't want to road rage against someone like you then, would you? I mean, it's bad enough with a lorry on the motorway or something like that, but one with maybe nuclear warheads in the back, you definitely don't want to cut them up, do you?
No, I got a nuke in my pocket. Yeah, no, it's not a good idea. I've got a question for you, mate.
Yeah.
How do I make money?
How do you make money?
I'll make it more specific. Yeah. So
I thought you were already making money. You do have a career, don't you? So
yeah. No,
making some money.
I am making some money. Yeah. No, what I mean by that is, I guess the question that you're gonna be asked all the time is, oh, how can I do what magic can I do to manifest money? And then what I'll do is I'll make it more specific by saying, you know me, and you know my, you know a little bit about me, you know my personality, my sense of humor, whatnot, you know kind of my environment, where I work, what I do. So what advice would you give me in order to manifest money? as in what magic could I do.
Okay.
Happy with that?
Yeah, so generally speaking, from what I understand from you, is that you want to do it in a sort of mundane way. So you would want to use magic to augment the approach that you'd normally take in life. So you're talking a lot about business and stuff like that. I know you've set up your own business, you're self-employed, you're kind of building a brand. So it's really going to be a case of using that brand as a vehicle. Now, we kind of talked a little bit about sigil magic and that kind of thing, the act of putting out a corporate logo and having the people that look upon it push energy into it. So that sort of approach is the thing that I would talk about. A lot of the time when you get people that don't have experience with magic come to me and ask those sorts of questions, what they want is things like lottery spells, or like that. So they want a quick manifestation of a sum of money, whereas, you know, and there's lots of spells and things like that you can buy in these crappy spell books that would tell you things like that. I mean, unless you understand the principles of how they work, they're probably not going to work, but people still buy them and use them. But with you, I think it's a little bit more complex, because I think it is more than just the money. I think it's about a certain level of pride in building something. I mean, you're a personal trainer. Building things and people is kind of what you do for a living. So I think that translates to the way that you would work, magically speaking. And in terms of the natural progression of what, you know, what I've seen, I would say my advice would be to look into the energy manipulation, so the capturing and transforming or transposing of energy that's already out there. So that comes with the sigil magic and stuff like that. And then I would also say look into the psychic work, because with psychic work is about, particularly if you're talking about seeing the future, prophecy, that kind of thing, you should be, as a business person, making business decisions that are going to work out long term. So how that might look is a case of, okay, you've kind of got a rough business idea, but where will that evolve? What will that evolve into? Well, rather than trying to come up with a business plan, if you're able to look into the future and see what it has actually become, just take your own idea. It's kind of like stealing from yourself. So a lot of those things, they work on different principles. But I'd say that yours is going to be a long-term building. I normally put spell work into kind of two categories mainly. It's the one use, single use, which is the person that wants to kind of do the lottery spell or the find a briefcase of money on the side of the road type spell. You do that thing, you walk away, and then it happens. Or the continued building that just expands and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Those kind of things. I think you'd be better off with the second one, with the building, just because I think it would suit your mentality. Apart from that, obviously, you're one that loves to learn and experience things. So, you know, whether you're deciding what you're actually wanting long term is something that I think people really need to think about when they embark.
I agree.
On something.
Yeah, I think, and you can catch people out, because you can say, you know, because if somebody asked me this, they would catch me the fuck out if they turned around and said, "What do you want?"
Okay, like so what do you want?
Well, this is it. I'm still trying to figure it out, and I think it changes. I think, like, you know, as you know, to make it all woo woo again, it's like energy, isn't it? It all vibrates and everything changes from millisecond to millisecond. It's always changing. It's constantly changing. So I think people's desires and what they want and their interests always are just changing, chopping and changing. And for me at the moment, what would I want? What would I desire?
If you could have a wish and it just come true immediately, what would that be? Because that's normally, if you ask that question, normally it gets people thinking in lines in terms of what's the most important thing to me currently, like what's the biggest problem, that kind of thing. So what would that be? What would your answer to that be?
This is why it changes, because I think at the moment it would be money, and here's why. Because before it was my peace, my inner peace. It was, I want to work on, you know, I want to work on my inner peace, and However, like now I feel a bit like, well, that's a journey. That's like that's a life. You're going to work on that every single day. And if you were to just have it and you just have that peace, obviously you're not going to be miserable because you're going to be in peace. But I don't know. I feel like that's something that I'd quite enjoy. But
So
money,
if you take that, because you said money, didn't you? So if you take that and know that it's money, then the next question that you'd probably ask is, why do I want the money? So you know, okay, I want money right now, but there should be probably a reason for you to want that. So if you had the money, what would you want to spend it on?
So for me, what it would be, what I'd spend the money on is, first of all, it's freedom and it's options and freedom. So I like the idea of having a little bit more freedom and like having a little bit more options. And also I want to be in a place where so I think that discomfort and suffering is important for people. You grow from it, you learn from it. It is important. However, I want to be in a cozy little place and I want to be in charge of my suffering. So for example, I'd quite like my bathroom to have a nice glass pane where, or pane rather, where I can look out and I can have my bath in the middle and I can look out into the forest or nature or whatever it is and have my shower and wake up in the morning and do a workout and then have a cold shower and I'll find the suffering through a cold bath or a cold shower and but I'm in charge. So I want a little bit of luxury and then I'll do my own suffering. Like I'll choose when I do the suffering rather than oh, live out on the streets and get rained on and be wet and cold and miserable. Like no, I want to have luxury and I want to have freedom and options and then implement my own little things that I do that create a little bit of suffering and a little bit of growth.
So is freedom then basically freedom to choose and not be obliged to do something or be forced to do something? It's a case of waking up and being able to actually decide, what do I want to do to get today, as opposed to, well, I kind of have to go to work. So security as well. So that's what the money kind of brings.
And to give back, certainly to give back as well, because it is a good feeling, isn't it, when you can help people out. It's awesome, and it does drive me as well. And that's not something I'm just sort of saying for the sake of it, because I know a lot of people say it is a driving factor. Like if you ever want to be motivated, like here's something you can do. You can think about just think about, for example, like PT. Like if I want my business to run, like one of the things I used to think as well is, if I can get to a place with my business where I can literally just say to people like who kind of, but this is where it's a little bit flawed, this idea now, and I've discovered it because I've tried it and it doesn't work. I want it to be able to give people free PT. I want it to get to a position where I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to give away my, like what I've learned, my knowledge, I'm going to give it away for free and I'm going to have people. But what happens when you do that, unfortunately, because that drove me and that drove me to be more successful. Is like, I want to be in a position where I can just straight away help people for free. It doesn't work though. I tried it and guess what happened from it? Because they wasn't paying for it, then they didn't value it as much. Then it was just, then they just wasn't kind of like showing up and it's just like, okay, this doesn't really work. People kind of have to, you can't just give away, you probably can help people in certain ways, but you definitely can't help people by giving them something for free because they don't value it. It loses its value.
Yeah, I have to say I've noticed that as well. In terms of how we work with our pricing structures, what we tend to do is the more work our clients do, the cheaper it is, to the point where sometimes we'll even pay them to do the work. So if we've got someone that wants to cast a spell, but if they're just wanting a little bit of advice, we're not going to charge for that. But if they're expecting us to supply the ingredients, actually sit them down and explain the fundamentals of how it all works, then obviously at that point we would probably charge for that. If they want to cast a spell and they're really, really good at it, we might sit them down at one of our events and pay them to answer questions for other people and to help other people cast spells and that. Right, so we are basically out of time with the podcast now. I'm going to put the full 2-hour edition on the Patreon. So obviously I want to thank you, Lee, very much for coming on, and hopefully it wasn't too painful for everyone. He's not really a New Ager, is he? But anyway, that's it for another week. Goodbye, everyone.